year ago, the winds of change in Malaysia brought with it renewed optimism among the investment community. A year on, there's been some disappointment. Some say they've been disappointed with the lack of progress, with the lack of clarity in government policies. So what now for the new dawn? What now for Malaysia Baru, as they call it in Malaysia? I'm privileged to announce that we have a very special guest, Malaysian Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir Bin Mohamad. Prime Minister, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Right off the gate, after you assumed the prime ministership for the second time, you were ambitious, you were full of promise. And year on, some people say that quite a number of promises are still unfulfilled. Do you feel that you underestimated the challenges in bringing change to Malaysia?
I believe I underestimated because we were on the outside and we didn't get any information of what was going on inside. But when we took over the government, we realized that the damage done was much more extensive than we thought. So we are having a very tough time trying to deal with damages in the finances of the country, the administration, and a lot of crimes which were committed.
Where do you think your government has fallen short?
Well, at the moment, it's difficult to estimate. We have been there only 1 year. And in 1 year's time, it's not easy to accomplish all the things that we have promised. Nevertheless, we have tackled many of the problems. Investment is very good now, with about 92 billion ringgit so far. And I think we have managed the debts incurred by the previous government to the extent that it is no longer a hindrance to our carrying out the administration and development of the country.
But Prime Minister, some people would argue that the economy is slowing, there's a lack of government, policies guiding it to growth. 1MDB is still unresolved. What do you say to those who are disappointed?
No, I think not many things are known to the public, but recently we published figures for investment, for example. 92 billion is a big number for the short period that we've been there. And we have also tackled the 1MDB problem. Of course, we decided that we would rule according to, we would follow the rule of law. And the rule of law means that the judges decide when they want to hear the case. And of course, we would like to have the trial done as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, the judges decided that it will take them 6 months before they hear the case. So, but now the case is on and is progressing. It's going to be a very long trial because lots of people are being called in as witnesses.
Has it been difficult getting the evidence to prove the guilt of former Prime Minister Najib Razak?
Proof. Yeah.
Proof of guilt.
Proof of guilt.
Yes.
I mean, that depends upon the judges. I don't decide on this thing. What we do is we have the AG to present our case, and he is there with his lawyers to defend himself. We'll see what happens.
1MDB remains front and center even a year on, and we have the Goldman pre-trial coming up on Monday. We hear from our sources that Goldman tried to reach a settlement, but you referred them to the AG. Is there truth in that?
Yeah, that is true. Everything has to be done properly according to the laws. So it's the AG who's in charge when it comes to government prosecution of any case.
Did Goldman offer a settlement amount?
Well, they did offer some little compensation. It's not enough.
Can you clarify let me give you a figure, $1 billion, more or less, or on the nose.
Well, they offered R1 billion, but I think the total amount is about 6.5 billion US dollar.
But how did you come up with that figure, 6.9 billion US?
Well,
In terms of fees, Goldman made $600 million US.
no, I'm talking about the total amount, not just Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs took 10% commission in addition to a hefty interest rate of 6%. That's not usual for governments. Governments normally get less than 3%. But this 10% extra that goes to Goldman Sachs means that we get 90% of the money raised, but we pay interest on 100%. That's what it means. And I think Goldman Sachs made quite a huge killing on this case.
You have said that you're waiting for a response from Goldman. What was the query?
Well, we wanted to settle it outside of court if possible, but it seems that they are not willing to offer a reasonable sum of money. So
And for you, what is the reasonable sum? Is it still 6.9?
We'd like to get our 10% back, at least.
When will you take legal action?
That depends upon the AG. He will try to expedite things as much as possible.
How long are you willing to wait before you take legal action?
We are very patient. we can't hurry the courts. We can't tell the court, please expedite this matter. That will mean interfering with the law. We can't do that.
Will you be filing a civil suit on top of the criminal suit that's already been?
That depends on the case. We'll have to examine the case. I mean, again, the AG will advise us whether it should be civil or criminal. Of course, we would like to have these things settled without too much, adverse publicity.
Prime Minister, why has it been so difficult to recover the money? I think you're still waiting to recover about $5.5 billion.
Yeah. If the money is invested in something, then we can go after the company and ask for the money back. But the money is stolen. It's hidden somewhere. We don't know where it is. They are not telling us. And a number of people were known to have handled the money, and they have deposited it, unless, of course, we can squeeze them. Not physically, but we will not know where the money is.
It's across jurisdictions. You've cooperated very closely with the likes of Singapore, with Switzerland, but not really with the Arab country that's involved and being investigated. Why is that?
These are our Arab friends. We deal with them in a purely Arab fashion.
Which is what exactly?
It's quite different. I cannot tell you. But we have to understand the way people work. Some people are very frank, they are very direct in their handling of things, but sometimes we have to be very diplomatic.
And speaking of relations, I want to touch on Malaysia's relationship with China. Just a year ago, there was a lot of pushback from Malaysia when it comes to deals signed. You have been pretty vocal about that. A year on, though, the tune has changed. You're more accommodating, and you're open to even, I guess, putting in a good word for companies like Huawei. What's changed?
We were able to renegotiate the terms of the contract given out. It is quite obvious that the contract was overpriced. We need to reduce the price. Of course, if we could, we would like to drop the whole project altogether. But if you do that, we have to pay compensation, huge compensation. So the better approach would be to reduce the cost of the project. And the Chinese have been very forthcoming. They have accepted a reduction of 20 billion Malaysian ringgit. That's very substantial. So we'll go ahead with the project. So that is resolved. With regard to the Huawei thing, we have no secrets to hide from anybody. So if they want to look into our secrets, they're welcome. So we are not, we don't have some fantastic scientific discovery or something like that. So let them have problems elsewhere, but with Malaysia, we're okay.
Some say, though, that the stand that you're taking now is a message being sent to the US. Are people reading too much into this?
Well,
Some people say that you or Malaysia taking the side of the Chinese is a message for the US.
no, we are friendly with all the countries in this world, but we also believe in free speech. And when we feel a need to say something that is sounds critical of others, but we should exercise our free speech, and we criticize when necessary, and we support when necessary also.
There's been some concern over the rise of China, and Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong recently expressed concern that at some point in time, because of the US-China trade war, countries in Southeast Asia in particular will have to take sides. Do you see a day coming when that will happen?
No, we will not take sides. We'll tell them, please don't go to war. It's wasteful.
But under what circumstances do you think countries here will have to make that binary option?
I think they will soon come to their senses. They know that it is damaging to both the US as well as China. I think if Trump loses the next election, we might have a solution.
But before I move on to the next area, I'm curious though, what role do you see China playing? And do you see the roles between China and US being swapped?
No, not quite. I don't know whether China has the ambition to be the number one in the world, but China is growing, it is rich, and therefore it must have its say in world affairs. Before this, we only hear Washington. They come up with all kinds of ideas, and we are told to accept them. But China is a little bit more democratic, because for this One Belt, One Road, they invited everybody to go to Beijing and talk about it and define what is One Belt, One Road. Even a country like, which has a population of only 300,000 can sit with China, which has 1.4 billion people. So I think I don't like the whole idea of cooking something up somewhere in the West and then asking us to accept them. China is a little bit more sensitive towards our feelings.
But when it comes to One Belt, One Road, the BRI initiative, there are concerns about transparency, about the debts that emerging economies are taking, which may be too much and strings attached. And we have what happened in Sri Lanka, which has raised concerns as well. Don't you share those concerns?
One Belt, One Road.
The BRI?
Yes. What about the BRI? I think ships have been passing through the Straits of Malacca and South China Sea since ancient times, except now it is called One Belt. And then there is One Road, the old Silk Road. Now there's more attention. In fact, I had long ago suggested that whereas when the oil trade became very big, ships were built which were almost 500,000 tons to carry all these lots of oil. But now we want to have trade between East and West. Why can't they build better trains, or bigger trains, longer trains, like they do with the ships? then we can move a lot of things from China to Europe, Europe to China, and from Central Asia to all the other countries. And Central Asia would be able to export all their materials, raw materials, more cheaply. And they also can receive goods from China, from Europe, at a lower price because we have better trains. So I think it is about time we accelerate the growth of the sea traffic as well as the land traffic.
Prime Minister, during our last interview, you said that when it comes to succession, you're looking at a 2-year time frame to pass on the leadership to Anwar Ibrahim. Is he ready?
It's not a question of whether he's ready or not. I made a promise, I keep my promise.
So it will happen within 2 years?
The time is not very specific.
Why are you reluctant to put a time frame to it?
Because there may be something I need to do before I step down.
What are some things you need to do at this point in time when you look at your leadership, when you look at the position you have as Prime Minister? What still needs to be done before you pass on power?
You know, in 1997, there was this financial crisis. At that time, I was on holiday in UK, and Anwar was carrying on as acting Prime Minister. But because of that crisis, I need to return and take over and handle the problem. So if something like that happens, I need to stay on, but preferably I would step down after 2 years or so.
Also,
Yeah.
do you trust Anwar Ibrahim?
Huh?
Do you trust Anwar Ibrahim?
Not a question of trust. It's
Do you
a
trust
question
Anwar
of a
Ibrahim?
promise. I made a promise knowing him, my relation with him was not always that good. But the fact is that I made this promise, and I stick to my promise.
Prime Minister, some people have said that your government has been pretty divided. In fact, some have gone even further by saying that it's probably a tad dysfunctional. What's your response to that? And is there a need to relook at your team? To relook at your team, maybe have a cabinet reshuffle?
No, when you you reshuffle the cabinet, you cause a lot of heartaches by many people, and they may react in a way that is detrimental to your good relations. So I don't normally reshuffle cabinet, except when there is an election and I have to have a new cabinet, then I'll do so. But I don't casually remove people, put in new people. I've not done that before, and I will not do that now.
Then is it fair to assume that you've been satisfied with the performance of your team and your ministers?
Yes, I know they are new, they are inexperienced, but we work together, and the team works very well. You know, in most countries, after a change of government, there will be people who will be thrown out, taken in, thrown out, and that kind of thing happens in other countries. But in Malaysia, we don't like changing ministers too often.
So, no cabinet reshuffle, full stop.
No cabinet reshuffle at this moment, but if there is a necessity,
So under what
supposing somebody
circumstances?
dies or gets ill, I got to change them.
Prime Minister, we have a lot of investors in this room. What's your assessment of Malaysia's economy right now? Currently, the projection is for it to grow between 4.8% and 4.9%. But recent data out of Malaysia have been pretty encouraging. Can Malaysia grow above 5% this year, for instance?
It can. Well, if you look at some other countries where there are changes of government, invariably there will be riots, street demonstration, and some of the governments are pulled down. But in Malaysia, that doesn't happen. The transition was very smooth. We could continue with projects or handle the projects left over by the previous government, and we can formulate or even use all strategies which had worked for us before.
So which are these strategies that have worked before that could work now?
Yeah, we will look east again. We will be business friendly. Politically, we will be friendly with all the countries of the world. We don't care about their ideologies. We don't interfere in their internal affairs, except, of course, when they do something very, very wrong. So that is the old strategy which we continue with.
How about fiscal consolidation in Malaysia? How's that coming along?
Fiscal?
Consolidation.
Yeah, that is coming along fine. I mean, we are not in desperate straits. You should imagine when we are left with $1 trillion debt, the country would be, moribund financially. But we are able to carry on. We pay the salary of government workers, and we are able to do the normal things that governments do.
When you came to power, one of the first things you did was to change the leadership of the GLCs, the government-linked companies. Can we expect further changes, or this is what the investment community can expect going forward? Because that took many by surprise.
There were many government companies. Most of them were run by politicians who have no idea about business. They lost a lot of money. We cannot keep them. We have to get rid of them and appoint new professionals to take over. So most of the government companies now are headed by professionals. There may be one or two politicians who are qualified, who may be board members, but not chairman.
The government has sought for Petronas to double its dividend next year. Is that the way forward, where GLCs will be required to contribute more to the coffers of the government?
Well, that depends on their performance. We cannot guarantee business, but we are trying our best to improve the performance of many of these companies by sometimes reviewing their structures and things like that, and maybe changing directions. We remove some of the companies. We don't need those companies. They are losing money. Some of the companies we are going to sell to the private sector. All these things are being attended to.
We have 7 minutes left. I want to go a bit more personal. Are you a different leader this time round compared to before?
My what?
Are you a different prime minister this time round compared to before? Has your leadership style changed?
I don't know. I'm still myself.
What is that, Prime Minister?
Well, I want to work for the country. I don't have much of a future. So the last thing I want to do is to go away leaving this country in shambles like the previous one. So I am working hard for the country to the best of my ability, and hopefully we will be able to make corrections and solve most of the problems we have inherited.
What is the biggest fix for you? What is the one thing you must fix before you step down?
The debt. The debt is too big for the country. We need to reduce the reduction, but if you compare to the GDP, as the GDP grows, the percentage of debt decreases. That is one solution. The other solution is perhaps to sell assets. If you want to buy anything, we are willing to sell to you for a few $1 billion, and somehow or other manage to reduce the debts, because it is something that is dragging us down.
Speaking of selling of assets, MES, Malaysian Airlines, you did mention before that you are looking at the possibility of selling the stakes in Malaysia Airlines. What have you decided?
Well, we have to find out whether people who will buy it can manage the company well, because, you know, we have changed the leadership many times. Each time we were hoping they would do something to turn around the company, but they fail. Now we want to sell, but if we sell to people who may fail again, it's not worthwhile. So we have to be very careful about choosing the buyers, or maybe changing the heads once again, and maybe restructuring or pumping in a little government money and things like that. There's so many options left to us.
At this point in time, though, what is the best option for you? And are you in talks with potential buyers?
If there is a good offer, then we will consider.
Prime Minister, on a softer note, we heard from Syed Saddiq, your youngest minister. He said that you're constantly reminding him to put his phone down. Do you think millennials are spending too much time on social media on their phones?
Well, today people are stuck with their phones too much, and they seem to be unable to live without their phones. Even when they go to bed, they would carry their phones. I think it's about time that we break away from this constant and continuous linkage with lots of people. They disturb your mind and you can't concentrate on your work.
You have a lot of followers. I think you have about 1 million followers on Instagram and almost 900,000 followers on Twitter. Do you consider yourself an influencer?
Well, I try to influence people in my favor, of course, but sometimes I fail.
What would you like to influence? I mean, what's important to you? How would you like to influence the younger generation?
Yeah, I'd like to influence the younger generation by telling them that you need old people also, because old people have the experience, and a combination of young and old is very good, especially when the old is very old.
Speaking of old, you're 94. Shame on you guys.
93.
93? Oh, sorry.
2 months more.
Okay, 2 months more. You're 93. How do you keep healthy? What's the secret to looking so good at 93?
I've been asked this question wherever I go. And my answer to them sometimes is that you have to choose your parents wisely. But of course, you can't do that always. So I think be moderate in whatever you do. Certainly don't eat too much food. Thai food is fattening.
Perhaps a 62-year-old marriage helps as well.
Well, we are not perfect. So you have to learn how to tolerate. I tolerate, and my wife tolerates me also.
You know, lots of discussions among the young today about perhaps even legalizing marijuana. What's your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's going down the road the wrong way. You mustn't give in to your desires. You have to curb your desires. You have to be disciplined. In life, you have to know what you can do, what you should not do. If you think that because you are free, you can do anything you like, then I think the society will deteriorate.
What's your dream for the young people in Malaysia?
Yeah, that they will be very sensitive about the country and love for the country, wishing to build the country and make it a developed country.
Do you think it's important to eradicate race-based policies for the betterment of the younger population?
Which base?
Race,
Huh?
race-based Bumiputra policy.
Race-based, oh.
Yes.
Yeah, but we can't. The fact is that the race is there. People are calling themselves according to their race. So if you forget the race, then you don't have to bother about race. There are some countries where people migrate, they get absorbed, they use the local culture, the local language, and they are no different from the original inhabitants. At that stage, we can forget about race. But when we still refer to our country of origin and that, then the people will still be conscious about race and the differences in race. And when the performance of the race is not the same, there are distinct differences between achievements, then the people will feel that they need to protect their own race.
Prime Minister, time's up, but I'm just going to ask you one final question. As you look back through the years, is there any regret? Is there something you wish you had not done?
Well, I regret stepping down because I thought that my successor would do better than me. But after I stepped down, in the first week, people came to see me and asked me, please do something, because the new Prime Minister has dropped several projects which they promised to carry on.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Malaysia's Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad. Thank you, sir.